last album I made called Europeana, which is celebrating European music as a whole. Predominantly the music I'm celebrating that I grew up with was Italian. So Lucio Battisti, Lucio Dalla, Patti Bravo, De André. A lot of the sort of 60s, 70s songwriter movement in Italy was amazing. But it goes back even before that to the sort of more classic stuff. You know, Luigi Tenco as well, I'm a huge fan of. So Italian music, the storytelling capability that there is within the Italian language is something that's always fascinated me. And I try to bring it to English, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do it in Italian too.
Is a virtue, but I can't get through.
You know, I think fail as quick as you can, because that's when you realize what you're capable of putting up with. You know, when I've seen a lot of people get success very quickly, and then when things don't work out, they completely lose track of what to do. So I think be brave, do it how you want to do it. Don't get too controlled. These days it's very different from when I started. You know, I started 15 years ago. There was a big industry, a very strong industry, and the independent scene was very small. Now that's all shifting. The independent world is getting a lot stronger, a lot bigger. The industry is kind of following what people are listening to rather than telling people what to listen to, so that's already a big difference. So the shift of control within the music world is shifting back into the hands of musicians and of the audience, which is essentially where it belongs. The audience should be deciding what they want to hear and what they don't want to hear. With us, we're live musicians. We like to play live. And I think, you know, if you get up and go to work as a musician, which means go and make music, it doesn't mean just release stuff. It means go and actually play it. Go and, you know, give people, perform, go and connect with people with your music. If you do that enough, something happens. You know, you start building a sort of little world of yours where people, if they trust you, they'll follow you. And that's what we did. It's taken a long time, but I wouldn't do it any other way.
Candlelight is how I like to see you say my name in the darkness. It's not the same.
I like to live inside the music that we're making. And it doesn't get much better than the Forum in Rome, which was where Ennio Morricone did all of his soundtracks, and then Abbey Road Studio 2, where some of the greatest albums in the world were made. And, you know, it's like taking a football player to Wembley Stadium. You're going to play good when you're in these areas. You know, I have to take my band. Both albums, we sort of locked ourselves into these studios for 10 days, kind of, give or take. And I've never seen my guys play like that before, you know, because the minute they walk into a room, they turn into the 10-year-old kid that's sort of, you know, in the most amazing mecca of music they can imagine. And they perform amazingly. Everybody plays that extra special when you're in the right environment. The same way a beautiful venue can make you play well, a beautiful studio does exactly the same. I never want to make the same album twice, you know. I love artists that do that, which is strange. Like a lot of artists that I follow, I kind of always want them to keep their sound. But from my personal point of view, it's always me, it's always my songs, but I always want to kind of adventure into different areas musically. And this came from lockdown, you know, it came from being stuck at home for over a year. Looking out the window just wasn't enough. I missed traveling, and I was heartbroken that I wasn't able to give my children the holiday experiences that my parents gave me as a kid. So I started playing them all the music that I grew up with, all the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up till today, European summer music. And it went from Gypsy King to Giorgio Moroder to Daft Punk to Phoenix. It was a kind of map of the last sort of 50 years of European music. And I realized this is a kind of genre that nobody's ever really focused on. And it's funny because I don't really like being put into genres or categories. However, I thought, let's make an album that celebrates the genre nobody speaks of, and I called it Europeana.
I get in so much trouble when I'm not with you.
I got a phone call from my managers in the States who know Bob's managers, and they found a suitcase, this is the story, they found a suitcase with a bunch of lyrics from the 90s that he never used, and they were reaching out to some artists. I had done a cover of Bob Dylan called Except You on an album prior to that. It was a song he never released, but his managers heard that, they liked what I did, and they said, would you like to see some of Bob's lyrics that he never used? And they sent me 2 poems, and it was from this amazing email signed Bob, and there was one poem that it didn't mean anything to me, and then there was Touchy Situation, which was literally, when I read it, it was as if Bob had been reading my mail. It was exactly what I was going through. So I tried to sort of put it to music on a guitar, and it was actually my wife who said it just sounds like a really bad Bob Dylan song. Everything I was doing sounded like I was imitating Bob Dylan, because he writes like Bob Dylan. But then I went to the piano, and I did this little thing with the word touchy. I literally touched the keys softly, And that's when I found the sound to the song, and I thought, okay, it's his words, but it's my song.
Secret life.